Firefighters arrived on 8th Avenue near the scene of a reported explosion on Monday morning in Manhattan. Credit David Scull. The New York Times. A peaceful beginning to the work week was shattered Monday after an explosion rattled through one of the busiest transit hubs in New York City, causing the authorities to evacuate hundreds of commuters and throwing the morning into chaos. The police department said that one person was in custody after the blast echoed through the passageway connecting the Times Square and Port Authority subway stations shortly before 7:30 a.m. The suspect, identified by the police as Akadullah, 27, from Brooklyn, was in serious condition at Bellevue Hospital Center. The fire department said 4 injuries had been reported. A senior city official who declined to be identified because of the continuing investigation said that Mr. Allah had been wearing an explosive device and after the blast the police had to strip him to remove it. The subway stations were evacuated, and Port Authority bus terminal was also shut down. Marula was alone, the police said, and the device was reported to have gone off prematurely. The explosion was recorded on surveillance video, the city official said. https twitter.com The city alerts status 9402090315322200418 In a news conference, Mayor Bill de Blasio called the blast an attempted terrorist attack and said no other devices had been found. Firefighters and police officers on 8th Avenue in Manhattan after the reported explosion. Credit David Scull. The New York Times. Our lives revolve around the subway, he said. The choice of New York is always for a reason, because we are beacons of the world. And we show that a society of many backgrounds and many faiths can work. The terrorists want to undermine that, he added. They yearn to attack New York City. Soon after the explosion was reported, the commutes of New Yorkers miles away from the blast became chaotic. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority reported that 1, 2, 3, A, C, E, N, Q, R, W and 7 trains were skipping 42nd Street. Commuters underground near 40th Street and 8th Avenue began to flee after the loud, muffled sound was heard in the Port Authority subway station. Police officers, firefighters and Port Authority counterterrorism officials tried to clear people from the bus station and the west side of 8th Avenue as sirens blared. Andre Rodriguez, 62, a caseworker at one of the city's shelters, said he heard the explosion around 7:30. I was going through the turnstile, he said. It sounded like an explosion, and everybody started running. Alicia Wiladkowski, 51, said that she had been in a restaurant inside the Port Authority when she suddenly saw a crowd of people running. A woman fell, and nobody even stopped to help her because it was so crazy, she said. Then it all slowed down. I was standing and watching and the bomb part of a body-worn improvised device was detonated in a subway passageway underneath the Port Authority bus terminal. Police have confirmed a 27-year-old man has been detained following the blast, which is being treated as an attempted terrorist attack. The detained man, identified as Akadullah, suffered non-life-threatening injuries in the blast and at least another 3 people are thought to have suffered minor injuries. It was initially thought his device may have malfunctioned, but Police Governor Andrew Cuomo confirmed the low-tech device was intentionally set off. New York terror attack. Suicide bomber with pipe bomb identified as Akadullah. The busy terminal near Times Square has been evacuated and the area is closed off to traffic. Times Square itself, a popular tourist destination visited by millions each year, has been closed off to the public while police investigate. U.S. journalist Alex Silverman tweeted, Times Square is closed, a counter-terror cop tells tourists. Port Authority bus terminal, Times Square and BT subway station closed, 1 in custody, 1 injured after explosion. Massive but orderly response, Shalom Spring added, was very eerie to see the Times Square station empty at rush hour as we passed it by. Scores of police and fire vehicles have descended on the area with people taking to social media in shock about the potential terror attack. AFP Reuters. New York explosion. Police closed Times Square. Twitter. New York City has been cordoned off after the explosion. Times Square is closed, a counter-terror cop tells tourists. Port Authority bus terminal, Times Square and BT subway station closed. U.S. journalist Alex Silverman Siobhan O'Loughlin tweeted, I work in Times Square at an Edge studio and we are all okay. As okay as you can be when the world is relentlessly violent and it feels like there's nothing we can do to stop it. Port Authority explosion. Twitter user at Constar24 added, weird to pass Times Square and weird to see the platform empty as we pass. Literally the hub of all trains in the city shut down. Douglas now added, my teenager was on a train from Brooklyn to Times Square at 7:30. Her high school is on far west side. She got off at 34th and walked. Hard to just get back to work. Trains were not stopping in Times Square 42 Street in both directions on the 1, 2, 3, N, Q, R, W and 7 lines. A, C and D trains are bypassing 42 St. Port Authority bus terminal in both directions. And the 42 Street shuttle train is not operating in both directions. Terrified bystanders said there was a stampede as they were evacuated from the area. Up and down Times Square this morning, NYPD closed everything in what felt like 2 minutes. We really have the best first responders in the world. Pic.twitter.com Alupjid 3 out John Saravalli at John Saravalli. The 1st of December 11, 2017. Designer Chelsea Lane, Sal tweeted, just was stuck in a running stampede at Port Authority bus terminal due to bomb scare. Cops everywhere. A source told the New York Times the man was a would-be suicide attacker with wires attached to him, carrying a pipe bomb and battery pack. Local media reported the man is originally from Bangladesh and there were police raids on a home in Brooklyn following the explosion. A graphic image which shows a man with his burned midriff on show as he lies on the ground with his hands behind his back is thought to be the first picture of the suspect. The image has been used by the New York Post, but has not yet been verified. Former NYPD Commissioner Bill Braden told MSNBC's Morning Joe that the man was inspired by ISIS and possibly born in Bangladesh. Braden, who said the man had been living in the U.S. for 7 years, was supposedly setting the device off in the name of ISIS, so, definitely a terrorist attack, definitely intended. Google's incident took place near the Port Authority terminal. Twitter. The only person injured was the suspect himself. Port Authority, a 10-minute walk from Times Square, is a major transport hub where buses and trains operate from on the west side of Midtown Manhattan. Twitter user Mike was at the bus depot near Times Square when the bomb went off. Tweeting a video as tourists were evacuated from the building, he said, "They're evacuating the Port Authority at Times Square. I just arrived by bus and got quickly ushered out. Apparently a bomb squad is taking care of an unidentified package." The New York Fire Department said it was responding to an incident at Port Authority in Manhattan, but revealed no further details. New York police tweeted they had been called to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, New York City has been hit with an attempted terrorist attack. President Donald Trump has been briefed on the situation, the White House said. New York in December sees a surge of visitors who come to see elaborate store displays, the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and Broadway shows. News of the incident jarred financial markets as trading was getting underway for the week. Standard & Poor's 500 index mini futures paired gains. The dollar weakened against the yen and U.S. Treasury securities prices gained on a modest flight to safety bid. The incident occurred less than 2 months after a Uzbek immigrant killed 8 people by speeding a rental truck down a New York City bike path, in an attack for which Islamic State claimed responsibility. In September 2016, a man injured more than 24 people when he set off a homemade bomb in New York's Chelsea district. Responded to reports of an explosion in Midtown Manhattan. The New York Police Department said an explosion of unknown origin had been reported at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. In a statement on Twitter they added that 3 metro lines are being evacuated. The incident took place 5 blocks from Times Square near the Port Authority bus terminal, the main station for interstate buses into Manhattan and New York City. There were no immediate reports of injury. Burn sent to front comment: a man with a pipe bomb strapped to him set off the crude device in the subway near Times Square on Monday, injuring the suspect and 3 other people at the height of the morning rush hour. Follow ENet News on Facebook and Twitter. The man and 3 others were being treated for non-life-threatening injuries in what the mayor and police labeled an attempted terror attack. The explosion happened in an underground passageway under 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenues. The 7:30 a.m. blast caused smoke to fill the passageway, which was crowded with throngs of Monday morning commuters. Police near the site of the explosion, Mayor Bill de Blasio and Police Commissioner James P. O'Neill labeled it an attempted terror attack. "Thank God the perpetrator did not achieve his ultimate goals," de Blasio said. The suspect was identified as 27-year-old Akadullah. 27-year-old Akadullah in custody. Law enforcement officials said he was inspired by the Islamic State group but had apparently not had any direct contact with the group. The officials said he lives in Brooklyn and may be of Bangladeshi descent, according to an NYPD source speaking to CNN. The device either did not detonate according to plan or malfunctioned. "There was a stampede up the stairs to get out," said Diego Fernandez, one of the commuters at Port Authority. "Everybody was scared and running and shouting. CNN quoted another eyewitness who said he heard two explosions while exiting a bus at around 7:45 am. It was two distinct explosions seconds from each other, Francisco Ramirez told CNN. As I was making my way toward the outside, I kept getting shoved by cops, and there were cops at every entrance blocking, and there was police and SWAT everywhere. It was scary. It was just a lot of chaos, but I didn't see any injuries. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and President Donald Trump have been briefed on the incident, according to local media and the White House. The bus terminal was temporarily closed and the A, C and D subway train lines were evacuated, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey said in a Twitter statement. Jersey Transit buses headed to the Port Authority were diverting to other locations following the explosion. NJ Transit says buses are taking passengers to Secaucus and Hoboken. From there, they can take trains or PATH into the city. Trains, PATH, light rail and ferries are honoring bus tickets into New York. News of the incident jarred financial markets as trading was getting underway for the week. Standard & Poor's 500 index mini futures paired gains, the dollar weakened against the yen and U.S. Treasury securities prices gained on a modest flight to safety bid. The incident occurred less than 2 months after an Uzbek immigrant killed 8 people by speeding a rental truck down a New York City bike path in an attack for which Islamic State claimed responsibility. In September 2016, a man injured more than 24 people when he set off a homemade bomb in New York's Chelsea district, the Associated Press contributed to this report. Of an explosion in Manhattan. Copy link, copy shortcut to copy link, copied, updated 7:58 a.m. Est. December 11, 2017. New York. Police in New York City are responding to reports of an explosion in Manhattan. The NYPD is responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan. The A, C and D line are being evacuated at this time. Info is preliminary, more when available. pic.twitter.com 7VPNT97 ILK NYPD News at Nypd News December 11, 2017. The explosion of unknown origin reportedly happened at bus terminal in the area of 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. The A, C and E lines were being evacuated. NBC New York reports multiple ambulances have been requested and the bomb squad has been deployed. Reports of an explosion in Times Square reportedly happened near 42nd Street 8th Avenue at Passageway BTWNA and 1 trains. If her safe, tweet me pic, Liz Dalim at Liz Dalim December 11, 2017. Breaking confirm explosion at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. We will have more info as we get it. Keep it locked to 1010 wins for more. Tanya Mercado at Tanya Mercado _ December 11, 2017. New York City's emergency notification system alerted travelers to police activity near 42nd Street between 8th and 9th Avenues, responding to a report of an explosion near Times Square. The response is centered in the area of the Port Authority bus terminal. It has led to delays along some of the subway lines that pass beneath the bus terminal. Some passengers have been evacuated as a precaution. There were no immediate reports of injuries. The Times will update this article. Caption UPDATES 505 AM. This article was updated with information on subway delays, evacuations, other details. This article was originally published at 4:50 a.m. Incident on December 11, when a suicide bomber detonated a pipe bomb in the tunnels beneath Port Authority bus terminal. CCTV footage of the shocking moment surfaced on Twitter, showing the exact moment that the emergency began. In the disturbing video see below, commuters are walking through the tunnel, which stretches to Times Square, like any other day of the week. The New York Police Department was responding to report of explosion near Times Square on Monday, and subway lines there were being evacuated. The NYPD is responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan, the tweet said. The A, C and D line are being evacuated at this time. Info is preliminary, more when available. The blast took place near the sprawling Port Authority bus terminal. One man was in custody, according to multiple media reports. Mayor Bill de Blasio tweeted that he was being briefed on the incident. Read or share this story. http://sussit.ly2ju-op2 Share your feedback to help improve our site experience. Was hit by suspected terror attack when a bomb was ignited on a subway platform at the Port Authority bus terminal during rush hour. The suspected bomber, who had wires attached to him, was armed with a pipe bomb and a battery pack. which he tried set off in the subway at 7:30 a.m. 11:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time Monday local time, according to police sources. Police respond to an explosion at the Port Authority bus terminal in New York. Picture of Brian R. Smith was injured and taken into custody after the device partially detonated inside the subway passageway to the N.Q&R trains near Times Square. Police on the scene told News Corp Australia they were not allowed to comment. The New York Fire Department said 4 people had been hurt but none had life-threatening injuries. Sources told ABC News the arrested man was aged in his 20s and had been badly injured. Firefighters respond to an explosion near Times Square in New York. Picture FDNY Twitter. The NYPD is responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan, the NYPD tweeted. Port Authority is the largest bus terminal in the United States with about 232,000 commuters passing through each day. The attack happened shortly after 7:30 a.m. 11:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time local time and plunged Manhattan into gridlock. President Donald Trump was briefed on the explosion, said White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders. A possible pipe bomb exploded at Port Authority bus terminal in New York overnight. Picture Robert Mecca. New York Post. Emergency personnel including police, heavily armed anti-terror officers, firefighters and the bomb squad were at the scene. Former New York Police Commissioner Bill Bratton said he had been told by sources in the department the explosion was an ISIS-inspired attack. Emergency services responded to reports of an explosion at the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan on December 11. Police said one suspect was in custody. The A, C and E subway lines were evacuated as a precaution. Footage shot from above shows emergency services lining 8th Avenue. Credit Facebook. Tommy Mazzavia story full. Emergency services rushed to New York's Port Authority after explosion. Credit Facebook. Tommy Mazzavia story full. Lamar Bratton told MSNBC the suspect was a man aged in his 20s and hailing from Bangladesh. If this is the case, it would be New York City's second ISIS-inspired attack in less than 2 months. Police at the 42nd Street subway station in New York. AFP photo. Brian R. Smith. On October 30, a man drove his rented truck down a cycle path along the Hudson River, killing 8 and injured 11 others. Following Monday's attack, commuters told of mass chaos and a stampede following the explosion. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said President Donald Trump has been briefed on the incident. The peak hour explosion plunged Manhattan's traffic into gridlock, with multiple streets in Midtown New York closed. There was at least one injury and the suspect was wounded. He was taken to Bellevue the hospital. His identity was not immediately known. Emergency personnel flooded the scene. The bomb went off during Monday morning peak hour in Manhattan. Picture AP photo. Mark Lenihan. New York City Mayor de Blasio has been briefed on the incident. Police and firefighters have responded to the scene, where the bomb squad has been deployed. The NYPD is responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan. The A, C and D line are being evacuated at this time. Info is preliminary, more when available. pic.twitter.com 7VPNT97 ILK NYPD News at Nypd News December 11, 2017 The NYC Office of Emergency Management said commuters should expect delays. The police department said in a tweet that it was responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, where 2 subway stations, Times Square and Port Authority, are connected by a tunnel. The Port Authority bus station was also evacuated. More to come. Originally published as Bomb Blast in NYC Subway Station. Shuttershock JTA, a couple is suing a Manhattan hotel for allegedly starving the guests at her daughter's $37,000 bat mitzvah party. The lawsuit against Hotel Aventi was filed in Manhattan Supreme Court, the New York Post reported Sunday. Nancy Held, the mother of the bat mitzvah girl, said the food for her 150 guests at the party in May was so mishandled that the hungry adult guests began eating the children's ice cream desserts. She said in the lawsuit that the 700 hors d'oeuvres were never served to the guests as promised, and that the main course, a choice of steak or scallops, was served cold. "We were starving," Held's husband, Mark, told the Post. "We were hosting the party and we didn't have any food to eat." The hotel offered $1,000 and a night in a suite to make up for the errors, according to Held. The couple is suing for $637,000 in damages. Nancy Held said in a court filing that she had been planning for her daughter's big day ever since being misdiagnosed with a fatal genetic mutation in 2013. The family also later discovered that the hotel was using photos of their event in promotional material, which the family had not given permission for. Updated at 10:38 a.m. ET. New York City police say the suspect in Monday morning's explosion at a subway station tunnel near Times Square was wearing an improvised explosive device and that he suffered burns after it was detonated. The other people sustained minor injuries. It was an effectively low-tech device, New York Gov. Andrew Cuomo said during a news conference hours later near the site of the blast, calling the news of an explosion very disturbing. New York City Police Department Commissioner James P. O'Neill identified the suspect as 27-year-old Nypd. O'Neill said the device detonated in a below-ground walkway connecting the stations at Times Square and the Port Authority. Nypd was found in the walkway, and the incident was captured on surveillance video. Preliminary investigation at the scene indicates this individual was wearing an improvised low-tech explosive device attached to his body, O'Neill said. He intentionally detonated that device. The device was based on a pipe bomb and was attached to the suspect's body with Velcro and zip ties, according to NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism John Miller. He said that bomb technicians and the FBI are examining the device to learn more about it. Nypd suffered burns to his hands and abdomen and was taken into custody, according to the police commissioner. The suspect was transported to Bellevue the hospital. This was an attempted terrorist attack, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said. Thank God the perpetrator did not achieve his ultimate goals. Thank God our first responders were there so quickly, to address the situation. The mayor added that at this point in time, all we know of is one individual carrying out what he called a failed attack. He said there was no credible and specific threat directed at New York City right now. Calling a bomb in a crowded subway one of our worst nightmares, Cuomo said that the reality of what had occurred turned out to be better than what had been first feared. The injuries seemed to have been minor, he said. Ending his remarks, Cuomo said, "Let's go back to work. We're not going to allow them to disrupt us. That's exactly what they want. And that is exactly what they're not going to get." New York City Fire Department Commissioner Daniel Nigro said the 3 other people injured were suffering from ringing in the ears and headaches, due to their proximity to the blast in an enclosed corridor. He said all 3 had taken themselves to nearby hospitals. Police initially said the suspect was the only person injured when device detonated. But the New York City Fire Department later provided an update to confirm the additional injuries. Around 7:20 a.m. ET, police said they responded to reports of a blast at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. After the explosion, subway trains were bypassing the Port Authority and adjacent Times Square stations, police said. The Port Authority bus terminal was temporarily closed. President Trump has been briefed on the explosion in New York City, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said via a tweet. This is a breaking news story. As often happens in situations like these, some information reported early may turn out to be inaccurate. We'll move quickly to correct the record and we'll only point to the best information we have at the time. Copyright 2017 Nepalese Rupees. To see more, visit http://www.npr.org. New York police on Monday were investigating an explosion near the Port Authority bus terminal that may have been a botched terrorist attack. Police said shortly after 8:30 a.m. that they had one male suspect in custody, and several reports said that suspect was wearing an explosive device. That device went off, possibly unintentionally, and police said the only injury reported so far was the suspect. Former NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton told MSNBC moments after the incident that the preliminary information he has is that the suspect was planning the attack in the name of ISIS, which would make it a terrorist attack. He said the suspect is in his 20s, and is possibly from Bangladesh. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force was also helping the New York Police Department investigate. Spectrum News in New York said authorities apprehended one suspect who was wearing an explosive vest and detonated it. Breaking news update. Our criminal justice reporter Dean Meminger reports his police sources tell him a suspect, now in custody, was wearing an explosive vest and detonated it somewhere in or near the 42nd Street and 8th Avenue subway station. https://co1lwbk3 or Guam-Spectrum News NY1 at NY1 December 11, 2017. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said President Trump has been briefed about the incident. Police said in a tweet that several subway lines were being evacuated while they investigate. The NYPD is responding to reports of an explosion of unknown origin at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan. The A, C and D line are being evacuated at this time. Info is preliminary, more when available. pic.twitter.com 7VPNT97 NYPD News at Nypd News December 11, 2017 The New York Daily News quoted commuters saying that authorities were telling people to leave the area. One woman said she was stuck in a running stampede at Port Authority bus terminal due to bomb scare. Cops everywhere. CBS News showed video of police surrounding the area. The latest on the explosion in Manhattan in an underground passageway. All times local 9:45 a.m. Police Commissioner James O'Neill says the device that exploded in the New York City subway was a terror-related incident. A 27-year-old man had a crude pipe bomb strapped to him and it went off in a passageway from 7th and 8th Avenues near Times Square. 3 people suffered minor life-threatening injuries. The suspect was also injured and was taken into custody. Mayor Bill de Blasio says the device that exploded in the New York City subway was an attempted terrorist attack. He says it's lucky the suspect didn't achieve his ultimate goals. Law enforcement officials say he was inspired by the Islamic State but had apparently not had any direct contact with the terror group. 9:40 a.m. A photo published by the New York Post from the scene of the Manhattan subway explosion shows a bearded man crumpled on the ground with his shirt apparently blown off and a police officer holding the man's hands behind his back. Soot covers the man's bare midriff. The fire department of New York says 4 people, including the suspect, have been hurt following the pipe bomb explosion at the height of the morning rush hour Monday. None of the injuries are believed to be life-threatening. A law enforcement official tells the Associated Press that a man had a pipe bomb strapped to him when it went off. The official spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak on the incident. 9:30 a.m. The fire department of New York says 4 people, including the suspect, have been hurt following a pipe bomb explosion in a New York City subway at the height of the morning rush hour. Fire officials say Monday none of the injuries are believed to be life-threatening. Police say the pipe bomb explosion inside the subway happened in an underground passageway between 7th and 8th Avenues on 42nd Street. A law enforcement official tells the Associated Press that a man had a pipe bomb strapped to him when it went off. The official spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak on the incident. 9:15 a.m. Police say the pipe bomb explosion inside the New York City subway happened in an underground passageway between 7th and 8th Avenues on 42nd Street. The explosion filled the passageway with smoke while it was crowded with throngs of Monday morning commuters. A law enforcement official tells the Associated Press that a man had a pipe bomb strapped to him when it went off. The official spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak on the incident. The person was arrested and has non-life-threatening injuries. Another person on the platform sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The Port Authority bus terminal, the nation's largest bus hub, was shut down, along with the 8 subway lines and all streets around Times Square. 8:45 a.m. A law enforcement official tells the Associated Press that a man had a pipe bomb strapped to him when it went off on a New York City subway platform. The explosion happened around 7:30 a.m. Monday. Details were still developing. The person was arrested and has non-life-threatening injuries. Another person on the platform sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The official spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about the incident. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders has tweeted that President Trump has been briefed on the explosion. Update from @FDNY regarding injuries at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. Port Authority https://cosmig63kzr. NYPD News at Nypd News December 11, 2017. Following an attempted terrorist attack in the subway station under the Port Authority bus terminal in Midtown Manhattan on Monday. 4 people were injured, including the suspect, 27-year-old Nypd, according to the New York Fire Department. All injuries are non-life-threatening. NYPD Police Commissioner James O'Neill called it a terror-related incident. He said Nypd intentionally detonated a low-tech improvised explosive device. Nypd was taken into custody and was moved to Bellevue Hospital with non-life-threatening wounds and burns. The incident was captured on the subway surveillance system. When asked about the suspect's connections to any terrorist groups, O'Neill said, "He did make statements, but we're not going to talk about that right now." Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro said 3 other people suffered minor injuries consistent with being in the area of the explosion, such as ringing in their ears and headaches. All 3 took themselves to receive medical treatment. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said the city was fortunate the incident was not worse. "Our lives revolve around the subway," de Blasio said. "Thank God this suspect did not achieve his goals." The device exploded in an underground passageway around 42nd Street and 8th Avenue in Manhattan, near the Port Authority subway station and bus terminal, according to the NYPD. The incident is about a block away from the New York Times building and near Times Square. John Miller, NYPD Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, said device was based on a pipe bomb and tied to him with Velcro and zip ties. Authorities evacuated the A, C and E subway line, and there is a heavy police and emergency responder presence. Police are searching for possible additional devices, which is standard operating procedure. President Donald Trump has been briefed on the situation. Witnesses on the scene said they heard 2 explosions and said there was an orderly evacuation. "As I was making my way towards outside, I kept getting shoved by cops. Cops at every entrance blocking, police and SWAT everywhere," witness Francisco Ramirez told a CNN correspondent. "It was scary. It was just a lot of chaos, but I didn't see any injuries." Copyright 2017 Raycom News Network. All rights reserved. Chicago News 12,112,017-0720. The New York Police Department said it was responding Monday morning to a reported explosion near the Port Authority bus terminal. Mario Tomagetti Images New York. The New York Police Department says it is responding to a report of an explosion near Times Square. The response is centered in the area of the Port Authority bus terminal. It's led to delays along some of the subway lines that pass beneath the bus terminal. Some passengers have been evacuated as a precaution. There were no immediate reports of injuries. Authority bus terminal, one of New York's busiest commuter hubs, during the morning rush hour was an attempted terrorist attack, the city's mayor says. It's believed the suspect, who was arrested at the scene, had a pipe bomb strapped to his body which exploded in a passageway underground. The NYPD police commissioner identified the suspect as Akadullah, 27. The fire department tweeted there were 4 injuries, all non-life-threatening. One of the injured was a Port Authority police officer. The fire commissioner said Ullah suffered burns and lacerations in the explosion. 3 other people nearby suffered minor injuries. Police were not yet identifying the device used. Local television channel WABC cited police sources as saying a possible pipe bomb detonated in a passageway below ground, and WPIX cited sources as saying a man with a possible second device has been detained in the subway tunnel. Mayor Bill de Blasio later said there were no known other incidents and the suspect believed to have acted alone. The bus terminal was temporarily closed, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey said in a Twitter statement. A large swath of Midtown Manhattan was closed to traffic between 45th Street to 40th Street and 7th Avenue to 9th Avenue, police said. Subway trains were bypassing the Times Square station, the city's busiest. There was a stampede up the stairs to get out, said Diego Fernandez, one of the commuters at Port Authority. Everybody was scared and running and shouting. President Donald Trump has been briefed on the incident. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was on the scene. WABC reported the suspect was from Bangladesh, and that he has been in the U.S. for 7 years and has an address in New York's Brooklyn. First reports of the incident began soon after 7 a.m. local time, at the start of the city's rush hour. New York in December sees a surge of visitors who come to see elaborate store displays, the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree and Broadway shows. Copyright Raw 2017. Was strapped to a man went off in the New York City subway near the Times Square area of Manhattan on Monday, injuring the suspect and another person on the platform at the height of the morning rush hour, law enforcement officials said. The person on the platform was being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Another person on the platform sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The officials spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about the incident. The explosion, which happened around 7:30 a.m., triggered a massive emergency response by New York police and fire both above and below ground, tangling subway and bus service at the nearby Port Authority bus terminal. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders has tweeted that President Trump has been briefed on the explosion. Video from above the crossroads of the world showed lines of police and emergency vehicles, their lights flashing, lining the streets and no other vehicle traffic moving. Everything around the Port Authority in the 42nd Street area was shut down, a surreal scene of still at what would ordinarily be a bustling rush hour. New Jersey Transit buses headed to the Port Authority were diverting to other locations following the explosion. NJ Transit says buses are taking passengers to Secaucus and Hoboken. From there, they can take trains or PATH into the city. Trains, PATH, light rail and ferries are honoring bus tickets into New York. Copyright 2017 The Associated Press. All rights reserved. This material may not be published, broadcast, rewritten or redistributed. Police respond to a report of an explosion near Times Square. Charles Zoller. A pipe bomb strapped to a man went off in the New York City subway near Times Square on Monday, injuring the suspect and another person at the height of the morning rush hour, law enforcement officials said. The man and the other person were being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. PA graphics. The explosion happened in an underground passageway under 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenues, police said. The 7:30 a.m. blast filled the passageway, crowded with throngs of Monday morning commuters, with smoke. A post shared by Ada Calhoun at Calhoun on December 11, 2017 at 500 am PST. The explosion triggered a massive emergency response by police and fire both above and below ground, disrupting subway and bus services at the nearby Port Authority bus terminal. Video from above the crossroads of the world showed lines of police and emergency vehicles, their lights flashing, lining the streets and no other vehicle traffic moving. Port Authority shut down, just made it out. Picked out Twitter.com DE2LNHX7Y, Suite LLC, ineligible for pass-through deductions at Bill Suite December 11, 2017 42nd Street being closed off. Picked out Twitter.com ChemTJPet1Z, Suite LLC, ineligible for pass-through deductions at Bill Suite December 11, 2017 Everything around the Port Authority area was shut down, a surreal scene at what would ordinarily be a bustling rush hour. New Jersey Transit buses headed to the Port Authority were diverting to other locations. NJ Transit said buses were taking passengers to Secaucus and Hoboken, where they could take trains into the city. POTUS has been briefed on the explosion in New York City. Sarah Sanders at Press. December 11, 2017 White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders tweeted that President Donald Trump had been briefed on the explosion.